Okay, hello everyone, thank you very much. My name's Dan Jones. I'll try and keep this introduction as short and snappy as the presentations you're about to hear. So there are two snap presentation sessions today. The first one this morning, and then there'll be another one at 3:30 this afternoon. So if you are here for the whole day, it'd be great if you can make it to that session as well. We'd love to see you. So we have three presentations, as I say. We have one from colleagues in biology, another one from colleagues in education, and a further one from a colleague in politics and international relations. The first of these is from Holland and Laura Mitchell from the Department of Biology, who will be telling us about an innovative approach to teaching employability. Our second one will be from Chelsea Sellers, Paula Mountford and Amanda Naylor, who are going to be talking about how they educate educators to teach sustainability. And the final presentation will be from Jeremy Moulton, who will be telling us about how we communicate the importance of employability to politics and international relations students. So, if we can have our first presenters here, we've got Holland and Laura Mitchell from the Department of Biology.
Thank you very much. So this is a Learning and Teaching Fund project. The title in the programme might be slightly different, but that's because our student partners have started working on the game. And for some reason, dragons have turned up. So this is a project to combine game-based learning with skills acquisition for undergraduate degrees. I'm from biology, Laura Mitchell's from the School of Business and Society, and we've got 4 student partners working with us at the moment who are all biologists, and 3 of them are in the room, so I'm going to point at them in a little bit so you can talk to them at the coffee break. Okay, so the aim of this quest, the quest of Univere, is to support students to engage with skills, engaging with them, acquiring them, consolidating them, evidencing them, all the way through that student journey. And a lot of the things that we've heard from the student panel this morning are going to crop up in this project as well. And what we're particularly interested in is supporting students at points in that journey, like arriving at university, whether that's coming straight from school or whether it's coming to university after a period somewhere else. Coming back to university, whether that's after a placement or a leave of absence, or again, a change in circumstances that takes you somewhere else. So how do we help students re-engage with the skills acquisition that's really important for undergraduate programs? But also, how do we help students to find the joy in all of those professional skills and discipline-specific skills and articulate those, okay? Because it's all very well having those skills, but unless you can sit down towards the end of your degree and say, these are all the things I did, and this is how good I am at them, it's quite hard to write your CV, and it's quite hard to tell people about it in an interview. So what we're looking to do with this project is help students to articulate those skills that they're coming across, but also facilitate discussions among students to build that community and that ability to articulate those skills and to think about how they might balance different priorities in their lives, whether that's work and life, whether it's being part of a social activity, whether it's caring responsibilities, whether it's well-being, as well as the educational aspects of the degree. But we also want to think about how everyone has a different experience. We've heard about how everyone is starting in different places. Everyone has got different challenges. And it's very easy to just think about your own experience, and we want to help students to appreciate the diverse experiences that everyone else is having, which is really going to help in that teamwork scenario where suddenly you realize that somebody else is dealing with something that you're not. But we also think that learning should be fun, and that's where the game-based learning comes in, because we're going to make this into the skills quest. So in this project, at the moment, we've got 4 student partners. 3 of them are in the room. They're right there in the middle. We're pointing at them. Izzy, Casper, Nick and Sammy. And they're developing a game which is going to help students experience the skills quest without having to spend 3 years on it. So in 30 to 60 minutes, they will be able to acquire an entire undergraduate degree's worth of skills, experience all of the life challenges that anyone at university ever has experienced, and by the end of it, instead of it being this horrifying trial, they will have befriended the dragon of employability and they will fly away together to have a happy life. Maybe. So the students started last week. Laura is also there. We gave them a prototype. We said, we think something like this, but we're not sure what's on the cards. It might work a bit like this. Tuesday last week, they're already playing a prototype, which has got like hundreds of cards in it, and it's awesome. Okay, so it's the Univer Quest, version 1.0. It's a 2 to 4 player deck building game. If you're not a games buff, then that means over the course of the game, you're going to build up your own personal deck. Okay, you use time to spend on experiences that are going to give you skills. But you also have to make sure your well-being doesn't crash through the floor, because that's a really crucial point when you're studying at university. So you're going to use your time, you're going to build your skills. That might be through academic things, or it might be through other things. Because, as we have heard, learning is not just about the academics. You can get all sorts of professional skills from things that are not learnt in a workshop. And then you're going to have all those skills, and one of the things you have to do is pass assessments. But the other thing you have to do is have a nice life. Okay? So life is also going to happen. We're not just getting experiences from our workshops and our lectures and things like that. We're also having part-time jobs, or freshers flu, or we went to the pub and we had a really nice time, but we didn't get up in time in the morning, so we got a bit less time to spend on some skills. And so it's thinking about how we balance all of those things. We've got some key professional skills that are going to be in the base game. That's problem solving, time management, critical thinking, communication, teamwork, and consolidation, which is the word we're using for remembering all that stuff and making sure you don't forget it again. So as you play, you're a character, you have a memory bank, you can bank things to use later, keep your well-being high, you earn some skills points, you're going to pass some assessments which require you to do things like critical thinking and time management. But the whole thing is themed around a sort of fantasy world, so that we can take a step back and we can say, for example, one of the new additions to the game is a dragon egg. Okay? Some people have caring responsibilities. Those might come from a whole variety of reasons and present themselves in different ways for different students. We don't want to make a game that makes everyone feel really uncomfortable. We want it to be fun. But we also want it to have a serious side. Okay? So maybe you have to look after a dragon egg for the whole time you're playing this. And at the end you get loads of skills points because your dragon has hatched. But it did make things hard along the way, right? So you didn't have time to spend on other things that you might have. And the game is going to come with a whole load of learning resources for using in education as well that helps people understand what's the real life analogy for this. What kind of things are people experiencing? So you can play the game and you can have fun. You can play the game and you can start conversations. And so it's a twofold thing. So we want you to help. We've got a QR code and we have a survey live at the moment. If you'd be so kind as to fill that in, we would really appreciate it, because it's asking you to tell us what are the sorts of skills that you think are important in your undergraduate programs, whether you are staff or student, but also what are the life experiences and the challenges and the opportunities that present, which mean that students have to make choices about what they're going to prioritise. Okay, so if you can fill in that survey, share it among your friends, that would be really great. That's going to help us decide what goes on the actual cards. We're going to play test our prototype at the Playful Learning Conference, which is the best conference in the world, in a couple of weeks' time with the Playful Learning Association. But we're also going to be doing play testing and focus groups with staff and students at York, so keep an eye out for emails on that. By the end of the summer, we hope to have a prototype that we will be able to play with people next year to use in things like induction, tutorials, thinking about what life at university is like. And at some point in the future, we will produce a beautiful, shiny version and take over the world. That's the plan. So get in touch with me or Laura. Do come and chat with our students at the coffee break. And we look forward to making you all play this game and enjoy yourselves. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pen. That was great. We now have a presentation from Chelsea Sellers, Paula Mountford, and Amanda Naylor, who will be, telling us about sustainability education. Thank you. The PowerPoint next slide. That's the next slide.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Hi, I'm Chelsea from the Department of Education here at York, and I'm going to talk about an enrichment project facilitated by myself, Paula Mountford and Amanda Naylor for MA Education students, and this was supported by the Learning and Teaching Fund. So this is what we set out to achieve, as the title suggests. There are two strands to this project. Firstly, developing an understanding of education for sustainable development, and secondly, co-creating some teacher training materials and resources for classrooms and for teachers. So the first phase of the project was focused on co-creating meaning and on developing students and our own understanding of sustainable development and related issues. So we were really also developing our understanding as well throughout this project. This is really important in terms of the co-creation element of the project. In our initial meeting, we gave an introduction to what we wanted to do to the project. Students signed some informed consent forms related to the kind of research elements of the project, and then they filled out reflective journals. So they were given some prompts asking them to reflect on kind of what they already understood about sustainable development, why they were taking part in the project, and kind of what they hoped to learn and to gain from kind of being involved with that. We then had two 2-hour sessions where we kind of met to work collaboratively with the students to develop our understanding, to come up with some kind of key definitions, and start to think about some of the specific issues that we might like to focus on. So during these sessions, we stimulated some initial discussion by sharing books, some recommended texts, films. We watched some of those during these sessions. Students were also encouraged to share things. We set up a Google Doc to kind of facilitate the sharing of kind of links and things like that. And we also had some activities to prompt discussion, to help students and ourselves start to make connections between some of that basic core, more scientific knowledge to some of the bigger issues, as well as highlighting gaps in knowledge. So we were involved in that learning process at kind of every step, and in certain cases we were kind of quite literally on the floor with students, developing our own understanding too. And throughout this stage there was a mutual reflection on the learning that was taking place in relation to sustainable development and what we were learning about that, but also on the experience of co-creation and some of the pedagogical approaches that were taking place. We also had 5 student leaders. They kind of took an active role in the sessions, leading particular certain strands, and they presented at a conference, they presented some of our work at a symposium, and are going to be key in kind of creating some of the VLE content that will be a product of the project. The second stage was the co-creation phase. So this was the kind of exciting bits where we started to actually make things. This were 2 half-day workshops, and students were tasked with co-creating some resources to be used in the classroom or to be used in some kind of teacher training CPD situation. So building on all of that knowledge developed during that first stage of the project. So the idea was that these materials should be easily adapted to different international contexts. So students working in their groups were asked to discuss what their interests were, what were their individual skills, knowledge, experiences that they could bring to this, and then to decide as smaller groups what they wanted to focus on, what their end product would be, and then start to create and develop that product. At the end of each of these sessions, we had a kind of a reflection and a sharing of what everybody had managed to achieve. There was an aim here for inclusivity in terms of both the creation of these resources, so including these students from different backgrounds in that co-creation, valuing their ideas and experiences. So it's a very diverse cohort, and kind of drawing on those multiple understandings of sustainability, sustainable development, and we really hope that these resources would highlight the complexities of these concepts and the variety of issues and debates surrounding them. Just really quickly, these are some of an example of some of the things that the groups created. As you can see here, there's a real variety in terms of the topics that they chose to focus on, the nature of the resources, and these are all things that can be quite easily adapted to different national contexts as well, and different educational contexts, different levels. So some of the lessons learnt so far, as I've mentioned already, there's a lot of learning going on for both the staff facilitators and the students who were involved in the project. So for us as staff, we've been reflecting really on the importance of that base knowledge and those key concepts and issues that we were developing during that first stage, because that was really key to students being able to, fully engage in that second stage of the co-creation, because they had all that knowledge. And then, they could then move forward with that in terms of thinking about specific topics, issues, and developing the resources. Related to that, we were reflecting on kind of the different role of students and teachers in that co-creation. There's points where we kind of questioned, we're leading quite a bit here. Is this co-creation? But actually, what we found and what we discussed was that we had kind of different roles in this process. So although students and staff, teachers were doing quite different things, they were both equally valuable. Students were bringing a lot, and we're each drawing on our skills, knowledge, competencies in that situation to kind of, have that co-creation element. We've also developed our own understanding of education and sustainable development. None of us are kind of experts in this. We're all coming at it, learning ourselves, and thinking about how these issues relate to different aspects of the curriculum. We haven't got to the stage where we're speaking with students. We are going to do some focus groups in their co-creation, their smaller groups with them in the next few weeks. When questioned after their presentation at the symposium, the students talked about, or the student leaders talked about, what they got from it was, about learning about the power of collaboration, knowledge sharing, and having those productive discussions about education for sustainable development that they might be able to then take forward into their professional lives. Lots of these students are teachers and are working in various educational settings. And this is kind of where we're going next. I'm guessing I'm very short on time. So finalising the materials, getting those up on the VLE site for the module Teaching and Learning in Schools, which is what all MA education students do. So the next cohort of educationists will see and have access to those. And then the evaluation and dissemination. So we're going to do some focus groups, analyse the data from those focus groups and the reflective logs, and then disseminate the findings and the materials and the resources that have been created from this project. That's it.
Thanks very much, Chelsea. And now we have Jeremy Moulton from the School of Politics and International Relations.
Thank you so much, that's great. So my students would definitely tell you that I struggle with the confines of a 50-minute lecture, so I'm going to set a timer that I can see very clearly here to deal with 5. So, getting students to understand employability is something that not only is important to academics today, but it's very important to students, it's very important to the people around students, parents, guardians, but it's also very important to the government. And you will have seen this in last year's political debate over the summer of last year, where there was a big discussion about high-value degrees and low-value degrees. And I'm sure we can all think quite critically about how we understand that distinction, but that's not a discussion that's going away. And I think really there's an opportunity that we should try and help our students understand there is value in a whole range of degrees. So while what I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes is focused on politics and international relations, I don't think this is something that has to be unique to the study of politics and international relations. But really what this focuses on is trying to get students to understand the inherent value of their degree in terms of what they can go on and do in the future. This is something that's really important, not just responding to kind of government pressures, but because students are entering very complex worlds of work that are changing kind of ever more quickly. The students that graduate this year are more likely than former generations to have multiple careers in multiple fields throughout their working lives. And therefore, we do have a responsibility in higher education to make sure they're kind of best tasked to meet those challenges. However, I do think there is a particular problem in the teaching and learning around politics and international relations. While our students are in a complex, fast-changing world, there's one constant that has always been the case for students of politics and international relations. At some point, someone will ask them, so you're going to be our next Prime Minister then? And this question is obviously slightly trying. It comes up time and again in the literature around the teaching and learning of politics. But it gets to the nature of something here, that politics is not a vocational course, as there are others that aren't as well. And so it can be a bit vague for people to kind of understand, well, what's the point of studying this area? And this is something that students, don't necessarily come to politics and international relations with an understanding of. They come to the subject because they want to study it. They really enjoy the subject area. And this is actually one of the resistances we have to what I'm calling here, we've seen this term before, I'm sure, the employability agenda. They want to learn about politics, and so they don't necessarily want to get loads of other curriculum points about entering the world of work, about how to present themselves, how to write a good CV. They're here to learn about electoral systems and the international political anarchy of the world. But they're not alone in points of resistance to the employability agenda. Academics also can feel very hesitant to kind of adding these extra things to curriculums. We all know how overloaded in terms of work academics are, and they're kind of hesitant to redesign curriculums or to kind of add new sessions in order to meet this employability agenda. And so this idea became one that was really interesting to me following a Sottle Journal Club last year, where we talked about this paper, Daubney 2022, that called for the focusing on extracted employability rather than added employability. That is, focusing on the inherent value of a degree rather than trying to add extra parts of employability value. But this would focus on using subject benchmark statements. Now, this is a particularly interesting time to look at this because as of March this year, there was a new subject benchmark statement for politics and international relations. So for this, I decided to kind of take a look at this subject benchmark statement and what it seemed to offer in terms of the employability promise of a degree in politics and international relations. And the Daubney paper breaks this down to what they call the case framework: knowledge, attributes, skills, and experience. Now, doing this close reading of the subject benchmark statement was really interesting. In some ways, there's a kind of a clear promise, but also I think the critical eye could look at the subject benchmark statement and look at the authors of it and see a long list of academics. And I think sometimes it can be really useful to get that kind of outside look. What do actual employers want in terms of their potential future employees? Well, one thing they definitely want, it became apparent in my study of this, is self-aware graduates that know their worth. And so this is why I've put this together to kind of help our students in politics and international relations, but also our potential students at open days and post-offer visit days to understand what it is they could be getting from a degree in politics and international relations. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much to all of our presenters this morning, and thanks also to the student panel, which I thought was brilliant, a great way to start the conference. I think we've already had a lot of food for thought and brilliant teaching ideas. So we have a break for refreshments now, which is roughly 20 minutes, although I think we're a tiny bit behind schedule. And then we have various parallel sessions running in the seminar rooms from 10 past 11.